You've been in my books, you've been the biggest discriminator since the Civil War.
I guess I wasn't speaking close to the mic before because you obviously missed what I said.
On Tuesday morning. In the case of Continental, they have you
in a way that has times in the past you've seen deposit payoffs there. We have a bill that's been pending before the Congress. Yeah, there are some people who got hurt in Penn Square, and I can't tell you how much that agonizes. I agonize over that. I hate being involved in that kind of stuff. It's one of the parts of this job that I just will be only too happy to get rid of. But I didn't cause their loss. And the FDIC didn't cause their loss. And despite anything you might hear or read to the contrary, the people who caused those losses, the management and the board of directors of that bank, they are the people that engaged in this reckless, abusive activity.
Okay, an individual at this particular restaurant was diagnosed as having hepatitis A. The person is a food handler at this restaurant and did have work for several days while contagious.
License? No. What's your name? All right. Right up here against the car.
I think that they will be effective in stopping drinking and driving, which of course is the aim of Mothers Against Drunk Driving. All we want to do is get the drinking person out from behind the wheel of the car. And these laws plug up some of the loopholes that were in our laws.
We will retain it as the governor's conference room, but for the next several months, based upon the recommendations that we've made, that people can come and see George Nigh. But it's nothing in there that can offend everyone. Of government. I do not mind.
I believe that reorganizing the governor's office, making it more responsible, and at the same time giving it the opportunity to maintain better control over the executive branch of government would do much to improve government in Oklahoma.
He had rolled over and was flying upside down, started to roll back into the upright position and never obtained that position. The witness said that he did not at any time ever hear the plane sputter, so at this time we are awaiting FAA to arrive so that they can start their investigation.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 1, 2, 3.
As he was walking in, a lady was carrying a bag of groceries. She sees the preacher looks like Conway Twitty. She drops the groceries and screams, "Oh, Conway Twitty!" On the sideline, bitches staring at me.
And I can hardly speak. Taught 8th grades for $35 a month. She survived the...
You know, we all talk about something being a pain in the neck. Well, if you've ever had any real trouble with your cervical spine, I mean by that the bones here in your neck, you know that's no laughing matter. Now, I'm not talking about just run-of-the-mill stiff neck. We all get those every now and then. What I'm talking about is injuries to the bones and ligaments of your neck. And the symptoms are much more severe than just a minor stiffness.
There are many examples of individuals who are just incapacitated by the pain. Most of these cases, the patients can't move without having severe pain shooting into the extremities.
Now, most of the time, severe neck pain is caused by a pulled muscle or a torn ligament. But it can also be caused by a herniated disc or other disease processes causing pressure on one or more nerves. Now, no question, this is a painful condition, but usually the treatment is quite conservative.
The patients will do well with non-operative treatments, and by non-operative treatments basically refer to immobilization. And this is done primarily by bed rest.
Now, there's one thing you really want to watch. If you get numbness in your hand or pain radiating down your arm, you ought to get it checked by a physician. Don't ignore it. I'm Dr. Red Duke. You know, we got a lot of bones in our body, and you can break any of them if you hit them right. Most of the time, however, a fracture is not life-threatening. But when you get a fracture of the cervical spine, that can be really dangerous. In most instances, a broken neck is caused by either a fall or an automobile crash. The trouble is, a broken neck is something that is frequently not very apparent.
The patient may be unresponsive. They may be comatose from head injury. And I think under those conditions, it's mandatory that one assume that an unconscious patient has a broken neck.
Now, if you even have the slightest suspicion that a person has a broken neck, don't move him. Moving someone with an injured spine can cause permanent paralysis. But there's one thing you can do.
Well, one can pillow the head in such a way, and by pillowing not underneath the head, but at the side of the patient's head, rolls of cloth or any such thing that may be available to keep the patient from moving his head about.
Now, obviously, the first thing you ought to do is call an ambulance. And if you can't find some way to stabilize the person's head, just keep an eye on him, keep him still until the ambulance arrives, but please don't move him. Now, the bottom line is, let somebody who is trained move the patient, like a paramedic. I know it's hard to watch somebody that's hurting, but making them comfortable may be very dangerous. I'm Dr. Red Duke. Have you ever noticed that nearly everybody you talk to at one time or another complains of low back pain? Well, that's really not very surprising because 75 million Americans are afflicted by problems in this area. That's a bunch of folks. A lot of the time, the pain associated with this problem of low back pain is only in one spot. And usually, this is the result of a pulled muscle. However, there are some other causes for low back pain that are even more serious.
Another type of patient that we see are those with pain not only in the local back area, but also pain which runs down the leg or into the buttocks. And these are commonly associated with problems of the disc herniation, or bony overgrowths.
A whole lot of back problems can be completely avoided by learning how to lift things correctly. Bend at the knees, not at the waist, when you're lifting something rather heavy. And if you're lifting weights, don't overdo it the first time around, or for that matter, any time. But if you do wind up hurting your back, get off your feet for a couple of weeks and apply heat to the area. Generally, the pain will go away in about 10 days of total bed rest. Now, if you're really in extreme pain, you ought to check with your physician. At the very least, he'll give you something to relax these injured muscles and something to help you with your pain. Now, the worst thing you can do if you've got a real back problem is to try to keep going. And the best thing you can do is get off your feet. Just accept the fact that your body needs some rest, a significant amount of rest, maybe a week or more. You'll probably save time and certainly a lot of discomfort in the long run. I'm Dr. Red Duke.
For the record, we'd object the cameras and the mics being. Scotty Lee Moore.
Also, we have the Texas Department of Corrections waiver.
There are three.
Display your loyalty to this country.
We're here to honor all veterans this day, regardless race, creed, or color. We're here for the veterans, absolutely for that reason, to let them know that we care and that we respect them and we want to honor them this day. I think it's very important because for the morale of this country that we let our soldiers and our service personnel in the service know that we're behind them 100% and that we care for them, and that let the ones know now that, and the ones that have gone on, that they didn't die in vain and they have served a noble purpose, and for that reason we're living under the freedom, under the American flag, and it's one of the freest places, and we have one of the greatest civilizations and one of the greatest places in the world to live.
Ready? Aim. Fire.
More and more young people use smokeless tobacco or snuff instead of smoking cigarettes. The people who sell it say it's a convenient way of enjoying tobacco without lighting up. But for one boy in Ada, dipping snuff may have cost him his life. Sean Marcy used snuff every day for 6 years. When he was 18, doctors told him he had oral cancer, and after 2 operations to stop that cancer, Sean died last February. Today, his mother filed a $37 million lawsuit against the United States Tobacco Company. It makes Copenhagen, the brand Sean Marcy used. The suit says that United States Tobacco sells a product that's dangerous, and it says the company was negligent by not printing a warning on the tobacco can.
I feel that there should have been warning labels saying that it was dangerous, and then the child or the adult, whoever, then had a decision to make as to whether.
Mrs. Marcy also says that money didn't motivate her to sue. Instead, she hopes that her lawsuit will educate young people like her son to what she calls the dangers of smokeless tobacco. Bob Donaldson, News 4, Ada.
The bloody brick he used to beat Eddie Cash was right in front of him. As Gary Allen Walker testified, he couldn't remember why he did it, but he knew it was wrong and he was sorry. Earlier, Walker told the jury he was afraid Cash had seen him try to burglarize Cash's house and was about to call the police. But a psychiatrist had another theory, that in Walker's mind, Eddie Cash had become Walker's stepfather, who reportedly beat him severely and often. The defendant seemed to sink deep inside himself as the psychiatrist recounted Walker's turbulent life story: alcoholic parents, prisons, hospitals, medication, shock treatments. Walker, testified the psychiatrist, was psychotic and furious when he killed Eddie Cash. With Monday Veterans Day and a legal holiday, Walker will stay in his cell till Tuesday, when the jury should begin deciding if he's guilty of first-degree murder. Randy Lewin, Channel 6 Eyewitness News.
Foresight and commitment. I've been greatly disappointed with this administration. The great and largely untapped energy resources of this nation is a tax plan that would have substantially cut implement real natural gas decontrol. But we were not Congress and the environmental community. And as a result,
I think one of the major problems that we have is that this administration is committed totally to a free enterprise, free market system. As the major oil companies and the independents that we've talked to and had in Congress testifying have said, we must have guidelines and regulations in order to ensure that farmers and ranchers and that local services will be provided if there's an energy crisis. So with the failure of short-term and long-term planning, we are looking at a very short horizon.
For 2.5 days, prosecutors have tried to prove that Susan and Kenneth Blevins were guilty of neglecting their daughter to death. The state completed its case with a babysitter who testified that little Cody Blevins was sick 2 weeks before she died of pneumonia. Defendant Susan Blevins wept openly when her 7-year-old daughter testified Cody looked okay the day before she died. Following a 10-minute recess, Susan Blevins recalled how she fed and bathed her baby shortly before she passed away. Mrs. Blevins said Cody smiled and was playful the night before she died. Kenneth Blevins testified his dead daughter never looked sick, skinny, or malnourished during her 38-day life. Several medical experts previously testified that the baby appeared severely malnourished and neglected when she died last March. The jury will hear legal instructions and closing arguments before deciding if the Blevinses are guilty of murder or if their daughter's death was a tragic accident. Scott Wallace, News 4 at the Oklahoma County Courthouse.
We've got a task force working right now, and by Monday afternoon we hope to have a pretty firm plan on how we're going to move some of our machines and get back into production.
Probably 2 months. You made a lot of credibility in that area, and as a matter of if you want to do it ahead of time. We chose not to do it. That was presented to our convention. They gave us the authority. We thought it would not be in the best interests of either the workers, the Postal Service, or the American people.
But Gary Allen Walker kept it inside. He showed little emotion at the prospect of facing execution. This was a man who admitted killing 4 people in the span of a few weeks for no reason he could explain, who told police he wanted to be put to death because, quote, "There's nobody that's been any colder than I have been."
There was just no passion in the crime that he committed. There was no reason for it, and that's a very good description of him.
Mr. Walker is certainly disappointed, as any person would be under any circumstance to hear those kinds of things. I'm concerned about him this evening, but he'll do the best he can.
Appeals in death sentence cases are automatic. Walker's attorneys say they will argue that the jury should not have been allowed to hear his statement that he killed 3 other Oklahomans. He hasn't gone to trial on those other charges yet. At this point, apparently the next case will be in Rogers County for the murder of Valerie Shaw Hartzell. Randy Lewin, Channel 6 Eyewitness News.
Our reason for calling this press row board, and we're going to be asking them to consider recommending to their what we'd like to see as our first step is a state superfund law. This law would entail requiring that generators of toxic waste would be charged a fee for generation of that waste. This fee would be used to clean up the sites that we have in the state today that currently there's no method of generating revenues to clean up these sites.
For taxes is good or bad that we only have 4 new ones, but you'll have to draw your own conclusions.
Front of the chambers so that you will be here for the swearing in. And pertaining to my office.
Signify by saying aye, opposed no, the ayes have it. And then you need to do that at your first opportunity.
Or other value than the compensation allowed by law. And now repeat after me that I will support
Very fortunate. We had 3 Oklahoma City police officers that reacted quickly and got in and evacuated what residents that they could. And had they not been on the scene, we possibly could have had a greater life loss.
He was supposed to pick her up, and she found out he was intoxicated, canceled the date, and he became outraged, is the understanding that we have at this point.
At that point, he came back to the residence with a gun?
Yes, he was totally uncontrollable from what we understand. Just totally outraged and came in threatening.
None of us could have a point of responsibility with the burden of responsibility as great as I think all of us have right now.
Senator Roger Randall set the stage last week. While Oklahoma lawmakers were taking their oath of office, each knew the battles coming up this legislative session will be fierce. Most of the controversy will evolve around spending and cutting. According to some legislators, education will be the most vulnerable if the budget has to be trimmed.
Who knows? That's probably what you told it to do. Then we got to get rid of this one. You told it to do that on first list.
These kids are in a course designed for children with above average intelligence. These students have IQs of 130 or over and take special classes because of their gift. This particular curriculum is specially funded by the state. Some lawmakers are worried about the future of this and other courses like it. They believe the state will have to find the money to keep the wheels of knowledge rolling in Oklahoma.
We're okay until July 1 of next year, relatively speaking, but it's at that point we're going to have some problems. Some of our smaller school districts, especially rural ones in the state, are operating on a very, very close margin now, and any cuts to them would mean, I think, some rather extensive school closings in Oklahoma.
Some of the proposals for raising money may include an extension of the 1-cent sales tax increase, a new tax, or a change in the budgeting procedure, which could net as much as $50 million for the state. There will be opposition. One state representative says he will fight any tax increase.
I think that in a time when we have a tight economy, it's unfair to tell one specific area that they don't have to tighten their belts when the public at large is having to. But I would be willing to let them fund them at last year's levels and then let them stay up with inflation and let the individual school districts decide how they want to divide that up in salaries and in overhead and so forth.
X times 64.
The battle over the 1985 education expenditures is just now beginning to take shape and probably won't be decided until the end of the session. In the meantime, students will continue to learn while the politicians continue to debate. Kevin Ogle, News 4.
Back up 7 characters, so we'll say minus case. It will print a capital letter when you hold X times 64, 3166, semicolon.
Semicolon, colon, or just semicolon?
Colon, say it, semicolon. Okay, wipe your name out because, okay. Hit 0 will get you back out of lowercase. 24. So the center of the screen would be the point 6424.
This committee knows your state board of education more while they're there. 41 salary that they should receive for the job. Talk to the committee before about the small about the world. And Oklahoma history could be built in. What I'm saying here is that school districts need to come together and offer upper-level science, math, foreign language, and computer programming courses. We say we have a shortage of teachers. We say we can't offer the courses. We can. In several school districts, it's been proven. We've done it in special education. We're doing it in gifted education a lot right now, and it can be done in these particular areas.
More money is stolen each year with a pen than with a gun. This customer's check will be good, but the next patron's payment could be bogus. Oklahoma retailers get stuck with thousands of dollars worth of hot checks each year. Some merchants are trying to cut down on those losses.
We've always gone along with the idea of sufficient information. I think if you'd go check with the Merchants Association and the different groups here, the bulk of the bad checks that are cashed because the merchant does not have the ability or won't take the time to get the proper identification.
Okay, what that says is
Oklahoma County District Attorney Bob Macy is teaching merchants how to handle hot checks.
This program is designed to give them some warning signs, also to tell them what information we need and how we can help them, how they can help us to collect these checks.
Bogus checks will remain an unfortunate fact in our cashless society. Maybe alert merchants and tough prosecutors can keep the checkbook fiction writing to a minimum. After all, the honest customers are the ones who wind up paying for hot checks. Scott Wallace, News 4 Northeast Oklahoma City.